Hi, and welcome to Strap a Watch. I'm Michael Knapp with Michael Knapp Leather. On today's episode, we're going to go a little bit more in depth into my Christopher Ward Trident Mark III. It's actually called the C60 Professional 600 Trident Mark III. Yeah, that's a mouthful for the name of a watch. If you saw last week's episode, I had bought my son-in-law Eric the exact same watch. His is in 38 millimeters, mine's in 40 millimeters. And on that show, we went into how you can remove and add links on a watch bracelet. This week, again, we're going to go more in depth into the watch, Christopher Ward, the brand. And also, I just got finished making this beautiful Shell Cordovan leather strap for my watch. So stick around, and after the intro, we're going to get right into it. Okay, thank you again for joining me today on Strap a Watch. As you can see, this is my Christopher Ward and the self-winder, and that's it with the bracelet on. The bracelets from Christopher Ward are actually really cool. I went into it last week. They're all quick release today. You can see the crown, and these are the specs right here. I'm not going to go into all that much detail. You can always rewind, stop the video, and check those specs. The price on with the rubber strap, you saw that was $790, and with the bracelet is $900 direct from Christopher Ward. They don't have any middlemen. They don't have any authorized dealers. They do everything direct through their website. So this is kind of a little bit of a teaser. I'm showing the finished product kind of up front here, but I wanted you to see that little red font. It was talking about the 600 meter depth rating that it has, and that was the reason I chose the red stitching on the black Shell Cordovan. So this is me actually conditioning the Shell Cordovan, and that's what's called a chip. Shell Cordovan is the Rolls-Royce of leather. It's actually horsehide, and it's directly above the hips. There's two chips that come out, and it takes 6 months to tan this hide. And that's the part of the cost. These chips right here are over $250, and they'll go up to even $500. So you saw me right there. I was checking with the gauge to see the thickness, and it was coming out to about 2.5 millimeters. And right here, I'm just basically cutting out the uppers of the strap, cutting them out of the Shell Cordovan. So I've traced it. You can see right down there, there's a little piece of paper. That's the pattern that I had created for this watch, which is going to be a 20 millimeter lug pinned. That's what the Christopher Wards are. You can see I am wearing another watch right there. That's actually a Chromex leather watch that I had made for my Sinn 556i, and I interchange it with this watch as well, and actually a couple of my other watches. So it's just a universal for 20 millimeter lugs. 20 millimeters is definitely the most popular lug size in watches today. So right here, I'm actually cutting out we call it the spine. It's a piece that's going in between the upper and the lower. You saw me a little bit ago also cutting out the bottom or the lower part. The part that's actually against your skin is out of calf skin. And then these are just splits, and I'll show you what a split is. It's just a piece of scrap leather that comes out of my mechanical splitter that I have. And then these are all of the pieces that go into making the strap, the upper, the lower, and the spine. So I'm just showing that right there. Those are all of the pieces, and they're just rough cuts right now. This is distilled water that it's called casing the leather. I'm dampening the leather to get ready to emboss my watch logo. My actual Michael Knapp Leather logo is round, but I couldn't get one made small enough where you could actually read it. So I had to redesign my logo just a little bit. and so that it could fit on a watch strap. I've got two different sizes, a little bit larger one, and then this one is my smallest one. And right there I'm just applying some heat. You don't get it too hot, you just get it really kind of warm to the touch. And then that's my 3-ton arbor press that we press and emboss the stamp into the leather, and it embosses into the leather. So it's another reason you moisten and heat. That way it really holds the embossing well. If you just did it without heating or casing, it would actually come out, and you wouldn't even notice it after maybe even just a few months. This way it'll last forever in that strap. Okay, so this is my Cobra 14 splitter, Cobra Class 14 splitter. This is an amazing money saver. I mean, it's a pretty big initial investment for anybody in leather crafting. But after so much time and having to buy so much leather in different thicknesses and different colors, what you're able to do is get any thickness of leather or just about you need and be able to bring it down to just paper thin, just as thin as you want. And you could go from what we call, 12 ounce or even heavier, put it through this machine until it's paper thin. What do I mean by that? I got a piece right here. You can see that's over 1/4 inch thick of leather, and I could keep putting it through until it comes out paper thin. What comes out on the other end are little scraps like this, which then I can reuse as filler in different kinds of leather crafting items, all kinds of different stuff. I just showed you when I cut for the spine in between in the leather strap, for the watch strap, I put a spine, and I'll use little pieces of filler leather for that. These are the 2 pieces of Shell Cordovan that I need to make thinner. I want them down to, really with Shell Cordovan, about 1.5 millimeters thick. So there's a little push pedal down here, gets everything going, and you just stick it through. Always safety first. There's a plexiglass. Oh, got caught. There we go, just needed a little help. And then on the other end is this. This is what came out. So this was on the back end of here. Okay, I haven't had a piece hold up like that for a while. And let me get my calipers down. So, got my caliper, just turned it on, zeroed out, and 1.53. And what's cool, it's uniform throughout the whole piece. .5. So yeah, we're averaging 1.5 all the way across. That's what we want. Okay, that's exactly what we want. And then now, these will become the uppers of the straps. Okay? And here I'm getting ready to glue the spine onto the bottom of the strap, the buckle side of the strap. So you have to do both ends, of course. And so here we go. It's contact glue, so you have to do both sides. And this is some pretty amazing glue that I found. I've tried so many different kinds of glues, and this is the Make Supply. They just do a great job, and it's a very quick drying glue. Some glues you gotta let sit for 10, even 15 minutes before you would adhere them together. And this stuff's so fast, I'm able to just pretty much glue it right away. And so what I'm doing here is forming it. So you can see I'm giving it a little bit of bend already to how your wrist lays. It's not flat, it has a rounded bend to it. So I always train the spine to the lower first. And then you're gonna have to let it dry for a while before you actually glue and apply the upper or the top, the Shell Cordovan, to the lower. So We're going to let this sit up here for a few minutes. Getting back to Christopher Ward, and I went in last week about how some people really give the brand a lot of guff. And it's an amazing newer micro brand. I mean, they've been around since the early 2004, I believe, was when they really launched. And it was launched by 3 guys that just had a passion for watches. They were all together. I guess the story goes they were in a boat, and they were all businessmen. And they thought, because they knew in the watch world that most of even the leading brands were buying movements, what makes the watch run, from various movement makers, ETA or ETA and Sellita, which is what this Christopher Ward, it has the Sellita SW200-1 movement, which is really a copy of one of the ETA workhorses. And ETA or ETA just pretty recently stopped supplying a lot of the micro brands. If they weren't in part of what's called the Swatch group, they were no longer supplying movements to any of the other brands. And so I think that's why, like Sinn and Oris and Christopher Ward and a number of other manufacturers of watches, micro brands of watches, have had to go to other movements, either Japanese movements or the Sellita movements. And they're really, the one thing that I notice in the difference, because in my Sinn 556i, I have a good 44 hours that I've been able to see of an average of how much time I get out of that watch. It's called a power reserve. So in between windings, if I don't wear the watch and it's the comparable ETA movement, I get 44 hours. Where Christopher Ward says with this watch it's 38 hours, and I've actually timed it with this particular watch, and I get 36. So with the ETA movement, and everything's really basically the same. So it's got to be something with the spring and winding it up. It must just not hold as much in that power reserve in a Christopher Ward watch as opposed to with the Sellita movement as opposed to the ETA movement. That's what I'm saying. So here you can see I'm applying the upper and gluing it. That's actually, it's called a bone that I was forming right there. You can see the spine that I have formed between the 2 layers. And here I'm checking the lug width with my calipers. We want to make sure it's right a little hair over 20 millimeters at that stage. And I'm getting ready now to punch through the holes for the buckle. And before I found this actual punch, which is made specifically for this, and I got it from, I think it's called Rocky Mountain Leather, and it wasn't cheap, I'll tell you, but boy, when you're doing one little hole at a time, and you're just off a hair, it ruins the whole thing. Here you work so hard up to this point, and I can't tell you how many times I was so disappointed, because as careful as I would be in measuring the center, this way I can just really eye it up. I put it on that ruler, and I get it really centered well on the ruler, and then really eye it up. And you can see right there, it's very well centered, and they're all spaced evenly. These are the keepers that I'm cutting out. So that's, what the on the buckle end is where you put the tip, the point tip end in through after you've buckled the watch. And there's usually 2 keepers on a watch. A lot of times when I custom make, like on this watch, actually I made an extra keeper that I'm not going to really use. I knew it going in because I have my size down pat. I've made several straps for myself, so I know my size real well, and I only have to really use the one main keeper because I make it perfect length to me, and I have a 6 3/4 inch wrist, and I have to wear my watches on my right wrist. A lot of people have asked me about that. Why do you wear a watch on? Are you left-handed? Why do you wear it on your right hand? Well, the truth is, I have broken my left arm 4 different times, and the last time I broke it, I was in a pretty terrible motorcycle accident, and I've had an operation on that arm twice, right where I would wear a watch, and I have a pretty big scar, and it's real sensitive, even just a touch. So I'm just not able to wear a watch on that wrist. And that's the reason I wear a watch on my right wrist. And I wish I could wear it on my left, but it just doesn't work out for me. So here you can see I'm edge coating the keeper edges, and we do this with all the edges of the watch. So you saw me also, I was beveling the edges. All of the every edge of a watch is also beveled, and that is a very thin, narrow bevel that's made by Ron's Tools. He makes just fantastic tools. And this is measuring the keeper. That's going to be the main keeper. That's the one that it's actually glued into the buckle end of the watch. And so, again, knowing my size, that's the only one I'm going to end up having to use. So I always make sure this thing is spot on. And so what you're going to see me do here is cut it out, and then you're going to see also that I have to cut it down and get it to size. So you'll see this right here. That knife I'm using right there, I've got a couple of these different knives made by Tarek, his name is. He's out of South Africa, and boy, I wish I had... It'll come to me. I'll remember the name. But I'm skiving the leather. That's a skiving knife is what it's called. So I'm getting it to size, and then I'm skiving it. I'm making it thinner right there. And you have to do it on each side, so it's the reverse on the other side. And typically I'd be doing this on glass or on my marble, a slab that I have. But just for the sake of filming this, I did it on one of my mats, and it's not ideal to be doing it on a mat, but you do, the sacrifice I make for you guys. So here we are. I'm getting ready now to prick the stitching holes for the hand stitching, the saddle stitching, and it's really difficult to film this and be able to see, so I didn't film too much of it, but you can see I'm going around. I had already marked the perimeter, and then that's the stitching iron that I use, which is a very thin diamond tip stitch, and it's at 3.38 millimeters. Is kind of my go-to for my watches. I've got tons of these different types of splitters. This is called a stitching pony, so this is what holds an item in that you're getting ready to saddle stitch. And saddle stitching, you're using 2 needles on one piece of thread, and you're going in from one direction and then the other direction, and it makes a very strong stitch. Even if one were to ever break, it's not going to ever come really unraveled. And what I use is called tiger thread. It is a synthetic thread, but it is super strong. It'll last just about forever. Unlike, I know traditionally using linen threads and other natural type threads, it's going against tradition using a synthetic thread. But all of the natural threads over time, they fail. I mean, they fail. And even while you're stitching it, it causes them to fray. That's why you're always having to put wax on thread, especially natural thread. And this tiger thread, it's expensive, but it's worth it. And that's what I use on all my products today. I do have some natural threads, and I've tried them, and I just never been really satisfied or happy with them. I always end up going back to tiger thread. So this is a 0.6 millimeter red tiger thread is what it's called. So with my watches, watch straps, I'm typically using zero point 0.6 or 0.8 millimeters. On a lot of my other types of products, I use 1.0 tiger thread. This is called Tokonal, and it's out of Japan. It's a gum substance, and it comes in a clear, a black, and a brown. I have them all. But what I'm doing here is I'm getting ready to burnish this into the underside of the keeper. And I have a glass slicker that I use on bigger, it's called a Berry King glass slicker that I use on bigger items. But I have found just using my finger and rubbing it in, and then taking a wooden Coca-Cola burnisher like I have right here, and just really rub it in and get it in there, and then do the edges. It's just a fantastic product. The end result, if you haven't used it, if you're a leather crafter, man, try this stuff out. It's just amazing. I use this, depending on what color, but I use it on the inside of just about anything I make, whether it's like a passport wallet or a bifold wallet, whatever it might be. On the inside, so you have the skin side of leather, which is the top. That's the strongest part of the leather. And then the bottom side is called the flesh side. And the flesh side, depending on how well that piece of leather has been tanned from processing it, sometimes it's real fuzzy, and sometimes it's kind of loose. The better the tanning, the better you'll notice the underside, the flesh side is. And if you noticed when I was cutting out the calf skin, you could see the underside. It's like perfect. That's some expensive calf skin, I'll tell you. And Shell Cordovan's underside is perfect. So anyways, that's what you have to do too, is burnish this in. This product acts as a gum, and so you're burnishing it in, you're slicking it in. I use it on all the edges, and even like I'm saying is on the flesh side of a wallet or whatever, I will put it all over and get it really rubbed in, and use my glass Berry King burnisher to really burnish and rub it into that, and it makes it real slick and shiny, and it helps really preserve the leather over the long haul, but it makes it also look very nice. So you can see me on burnishing the edge. I'll tell you, I take sometimes 20-30 minutes per side of working on an edge. Edge work is so critical in leather crafting. I don't have to tell any leather crafters out there, but you spend an enormous amount of time getting your edges as perfect as you can. You're dealing with a natural product, and you see me wearing gloves a lot when I'm using various dyes and other types of things, and I'm trying not to get anything on the calfskin leather because it's pretty light. You can't help it. It's just you're going to get stuff on there. So here you can see I've got the finished product right here. This is the watch with the bracelet on. And again, like I was saying, these Christopher Ward bracelets are really done well. They even have a little quick system, not just a quick release, but an expansion, where if your wrist swells throughout the day, you can expand it out. And I have to do that a lot. I don't know what it is with you people, you might know too, is when you travel, like your ring size swells your finger, you can't even get a ring on. Well, it's the same thing with watches. I don't know, maybe I eat too much salt or something when I'm traveling. But here you can see I'm putting the quick release on, and it just snaps in place, and there we go. So there's one side, and then we're going to get the buckle side on. So same thing, I showed this last week. This is a very popular item, and my watches don't come with it. You got to order this separate, And I'm not here trying to sell watch straps. That's not what this channel is about in any way. If you do want a watch strap, you can visit my website, and it's in the description. There's the finished product. But what Strap a Watch is really all about you know, it's kind of concerning to me that fewer and fewer people are wearing, especially mechanical watches these days. Everybody has their cell phones, and not many people are really wearing watches. And so what this is really about is to help promote wearing, especially mechanical watches again. And I just really highly encourage anybody out there that, you know, if you have a younger person in your life, buy them a watch, buy them a mechanical watch. I mean, it's amazing to see them light up when you do buy them a watch. So here's the finished product. I've got it on. I just really thank you all for joining me today. You know, this is just, again, the beginning of Strap a Watch. So please subscribe, like, and share. So God bless you. I'll see you soon. Until then, keep on ticking.